Kyle Mann is the editor-in-chief of the Babylon Bee, one of my favorite sites. It's got more than 300,000 Facebook fans and over 70,000 visitors to the website daily. He is also the co-author of How to Be a Perfect Christian, your comprehensive guide to flawless spiritual living. So if some of you out there feel that you are not yet perfect as Christians, this interview and this book will tell you how. Here it is. So Kyle, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I think your book is destined to become a Christian classic, How to Be a Perfect Christian. You know, some people say that perfection is beyond us because mankind is sinful and helpless without God. I find that kind of a downer. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. Those people are very wrong because you can achieve total perfection. I mean, I literally wrote the book on it. So, yeah, I don't know what those people are talking about, but if you try really hard and you conform to the standards of Christian culture and evangelicalism, you too can be perfect. And that's the message we want to get out with this book.
I think that that's a very important Christian message to send around. I mean, when I look for a church, I want a church that centers its worship around me. I mean, I think that I want to be at the center of my Christian worship. How do I go about finding that kind of church?
Well, you have to find a church, first of all, that looks like a shopping mall.
Uh-huh.
That's your first goal. So if you drive around town, you look for a church that has tens of thousands of parking spaces. It has to have a coffee shop, gift shop, bookstore, fitness center, football field, roller coasters. Everything that you would want. Basically, it should look like Disneyland.
Because a steeple is kind of a deal breaker, right?
Yeah, steeple, crosses, any kind of indication that they might not support you in your path to conforming to Christian culture would be a turnoff.
Yeah, I get that. I think I can find. I'm in LA, so there's plenty of churches like that around. I worry about the pastor. You go out and you look for a church, you kind of walk in, the guy starts telling you about sin or about hell. And I just find that, it's so off-putting. That is not, I want Christianity to basically lift me up and make me feel better about myself.
Yeah. In our book, How to Be a Perfect Christian, we have a list of trigger words that should be a warning for you, kind of an indication that the church is not right for you. And some of those are like hell, wrath, cross, Jesus. Anything that would make you feel uncomfortable in the sermon is definitely a red flag.
Yeah, whenever I hear them talking about the cross, I always think like, that doesn't sound pleasant at all. I mean, that really sounds like that could cause a lot of suffering. And I don't know why you would want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, why? We're trying to grow these churches to get tens of thousands of people. And how are you going to do that when you're talking about death and execution and blood? I was in a church the other weekend and they were singing a song about the blood of Jesus. I mean, that's just disgusting. Why would we want to sing about that?
Really unpleasant. Now, another thing that I find happens sometimes in church, and this may just be one of those things that's a holdover from another day, is they'll sometimes ask you to turn to the person next to you and shake his hand or even make some comment to somebody you don't even know. I just find, how can you avoid, I want to be a perfect Christian. I want everybody to know that I'm a perfect Christian. I mean, that's the important thing, is that everyone knows it. But how do I do that without getting over-involved with other people in my church?
You need to be really careful because people who are less holy than you, which is everybody, let's be frank, they're going to rub off on you if you let that negativity into your life. So when the pastor says, or the worship leader says, let's greet one another, you just need to stare straight ahead, arms folded in front of you, just glaring you. People come up and say, hey, good morning. You just stonewall them. Worst case scenario, bring a smoke grenade along.
I hadn't thought of that.
Pop the smoke grenade. Yeah. Grappling hook. Grappling hook yourself right out of there, and you're good. And
I think you also have these small groups where people start to latch onto you. They start to follow you around, ask you for advice. On their Christian journey, they start talking about that stuff. How do you get out of that?
Well, we do recommend joining a small group because you can't really appear holy unless you're part of one of these small groups, community groups, connection groups, whatever they call them. So you do have to join one. But the idea would be to kind of keep them at arm's distance, and you don't want them to think that you're starting to depend on them. So when you show up, maybe show up once a month. If it's a weekly thing, every third or fourth time you show up and just kind of grace them with your presence. When you do show up to your small group, you want to examine the house of the person who's hosting it. So you want to go look at their shelf and see if they have any Game of Thrones DVDs. So you can pull it out and show everybody, hey, these people aren't up to my standards of holiness.
Yeah.
You can look in the garage. They've probably hidden any beer or wine, up on a high shelf in the garage. So you could look for that, take some pictures, show it to the pastor. So, small groups can be a really good way to catapult yourself to the next level of spiritual perfection.
Yeah, Game of Thrones is great for that. I mean, it really does. When you can condemn Game of Thrones, especially if they have, any kind of recordings at home that you can get. So we're talking about how to be a perfect Christian. You'll see there's yellow on the cover, just like some of C.S. Lewis's books, which it really reminds me of. One of my favorite parts of the Gospels is they come to Jesus and they say, how do you pray? How do you pray?
When you pray, you need to sound like a Puritan.
Uh-huh.
So go read a bunch of the 17th century, 16th century Puritans, reformers. Grab all of their big words that you don't understand and just sprinkle them throughout your prayer. Even if you don't know what they mean, you don't understand what you're saying. Everyone around you will think, "Wow, that guy said mortification," and they'll immediately know that you are a perfect Christian.
That's great. So there are words like mortification, anything with more than one or two syllables, I think probably carry you forward. A couple of these and thous, is that all right too?
Yeah. Use these and thous.
Yeah.
You sprinkle liberally throughout.
So now some of the churches I've been to, they call them volunteer opportunities or outreach opportunities. How do I avoid those? I feel that I want to be a perfect Christian, but I don't want to get too close to people who are smelly or dirty or poor or anything like that. So how do I get out of these volunteer outreach things?
Yeah. So if the pastor approaches you and he says, "Hey, we really need help serving in the 2 and 3 year olds ministry, or we need help at the homeless ministry," obviously, those positions aren't going to get a lot of praise. They're not going to get a lot of glory. So you just tell the pastor, "I'm going to keep that in prayer. I'm going to keep that in prayer."
Keep that in prayer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to keep that in prayer. Even he's just like, "Hey, all I'm asking is for you to watch the kids for an hour next week. I really need to think on this. I need to pray on this," and then just never get back to him.
That sounds really useful. That's really useful advice. I appreciate it. One of the things I took away, one of the lessons I took away from how to be a perfect Christian, is that being a perfect Christian depends a lot on your online presence. I mean, how you present yourself to other people online. Can you give me some tips on what would make me a more perfect Christian, or at least appear to be a more perfect Christian online?
Well, you start with the profile picture. So there's a few different options that you could take, that you could choose for your profile picture. A picture of one of the reformers, just a serious, dour looking John Calvin or Martin Luther. That's a good way to go. Jesus maybe wearing a "Make America Great Again" hat, riding on an eagle, firing an AR-15. That's a good way to go too. That's kind of the political route, but you could kind of choose. You can customize it to your own feel, but that, and then everything you post just needs to be a inspirational quote. Like we said, we don't want negativity rubbing off on people, so just inspirational quote after inspirational quote. Share a lot of those images of the Caucasian Jesus, that says one amen, or one like equals one amen, or one share equals one salvation, or whatever. Share a lot of those. That shows Jesus that you love him. It shows everyone else that you love Jesus. And we also recommend taking a picture of your devotional time in the mornings. Even if you don't actually have time to read the Bible, just at least make time to open it up, put the coffee, and take the picture. Yeah.
That is something. I mean, I don't really have time to read the Bible. I'm just busy. It's just like, and
nobody does.
No, nobody. But you really help out with that in how to be a perfect Christian. You help out with that by distilling the essential truths of the gospel, so you don't have to actually go to the gospel and find those out. Can you give me a couple of those, the essential truths of what the gospel is basically telling us?
Yeah, so the essential truths of the Christian faith. Well, first of all, we give kind of a systematic theology, so we explain, the eternal truths of the gospel. Who God is and who Jesus is and the Holy Spirit, and how he kind of gives you Jedi powers, all of that stuff that's kind of the important essentials of the faith. And then we go into kind of the spirit of Christian doctrine, which is you are amazing. So I think we give 6 or 7 in there that are the core tenets, but they can all pretty much be summed up in the fact that you are amazing and you are special. And anything else that anybody says about you, even if the Bible says it, is just more negativity in your life. So you need to cut that out.
That's exactly that's the kind of perfection of Christianity I'm looking for. I am looking for a church, a pastor, a Bible that tells me that I'm great, because what else do I want? Life is short. Jesus calls us to be cultural warriors in the Bible, in the passage where he says, go forth and be a cultural warrior. I'm not quoting it exactly, but it's something like that. What does that mean? What does it look like to be a cultural warrior for Christianity?
Well, it's definitely not just living out the gospel in your day-to-day life, loving your neighbors, doing things that show them the love of Christ, sharing the gospel. That is not the way to win the culture war. The number one thing you need to do is become a registered Republican. Obviously,
important. Yeah.
Vote for any Republican candidate. No matter if they're good on the issues, bad on the issues, good voting record, bad voting record, good character, doesn't matter. When you get to heaven, they're going to ask to see the records of everybody you voted for, and you want to have voted a straight Republican ticket each and every time. So that's a good starting place, and that's what Jesus taught us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find, you have in this an actual holiness progress tracker that takes you from Satan to Jesus, so that when you start the book, you're probably down there around Satan, close to Judas, and then you can move up through Cain and David and the Apostle Paul, finally get as far as Jesus when you're a perfect Christian. Finally, let me wrap this up. When you're a cultural warrior, part of the most important part of being a cultural warrior is condemning people who don't see things the way you are. This is strict biblical gospel admonition to condemn others. Where do I start? Who do I start with when I'm condemning people?
Oh, anyone and everyone. I would definitely condemn, your immediate family first, and then you move to the concentric circles of your oikos and your influence groups after that. So, yeah, you need to condemn anybody who doesn't see things exactly the way that you do. They're pretty much Hitler anyway.
Right,
so
right, yeah.
They don't really count in terms of loving your neighbor. You're supposed to condemn them, shake the dust off your sandals, and move on.
Yeah, it just stands to reason that if you are a perfect Christian, anybody who is not you is obviously imperfect and therefore, really close to Hitler. From the Babylon Bee, How to Be a Perfect Christian. I know it's going to be on my shelf next to, where I would put my Bible if I had one, or, even next amidst the works of C.S. Lewis, the only other writer on these subjects that I know anything about. Thank you very much, Kyle, for coming on, and I hope the book sells to as many people as possible, because we're here to make money.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. So every time I send out something, I share something from the Babylon Bee, I get these angry letters from people saying, "Don't you realize this is a satire site? It's fake news." And so if you feel like we were trolling you a little bit, it's possible we were just trolling you a little bit. The Babylon Bee, it is one of the great satire sites. It's up there with The Onion. It is just hilarious. How to Be a Perfect Christian, your comprehensive guide to flawless spiritual living.